Something terrible has just happened in Canada, and make no mistake, it's preparing the world for the coming Antichrist. All right, everybody, let's get into this one. This one is a terrible one. I can tell you right now, I continue to see these headlines literally not believing this stuff. I mean, I think about this and I think, gosh, this has to be Babylon B. This has to be some type of satirical type of thing that's being said. But no, this is absolutely true. And when I go through this, it's going to make you completely sick. But I can tell you this right now. We are rapidly approaching the world of the final Antichrist. This kind of thing is just pure evidence of the fact that we're going in that direction. So here it is. I'm looking at an article and it says this. It says Canada to imprison anyone who has ever posted hate speech online. It says this, the Trudeau regime has introduced an Orwellian new law called the Online Harms Bill, C-63, which will give police the power to retroactively, that's the word, folks, retroactively search the internet for hate speech violations and arrest offenders, even if the offense occurred before the law existed. Now, the question is, what is hate speech? And folks, I can tell you this, if we are looking at the Trudeau regime's definition of hate speech, it'll be anything that is contrary to their wickedness, anything that is contrary to their ideals, their philosophies. I can tell you preaching the gospel will be considered hate speech to them. But look at what it says here. Revolver News reports, the real shocker in this bill is the alarming retroactive aspect. Essentially, whatever you said in the past can now be weaponized against you by today's draconian standards. Historian Dr. Muriel Blave has weighed in on this draconian law, labeling it outright mad. She points out how it literally spits in the face of all Western legal traditions, especially the one about being punished if you infringed on a law that was valid at the time of committing a crime. Folks, this is like unbelievable, right? Listen to the quote that this doctor writes, folks, and pay very special attention to what it says. She says this, and it isn't just stuff you've posted after the new law comes into force you could get into trouble for. Oh no, but anything you've posted ever dating back to the dawn of the internet. In other words, it's a gold embossed invitation to offense archaeologists to do their worst with the prospect of a $20,000 reward if they hit pay dirt. The only way to protect yourself is to go through all your social media accounts and painstakingly delete anything remotely controversial you've ever said. Folks, do you understand the implications of what this woman is just saying, what she's bringing out to the table? The implications of this are so unbelievably insane that it's absolutely hard to imagine. Basically, if you disagree with this government, then you pretty much need to erase your online history ever in any circumstance you've ever been in. If you've spoken anywhere, if you've written an email, you need to delete it all. And even if you delete it all, it's very likely they'll still find something to tag on you to put you in jail if they absolutely hate you, they don't like you, or you just simply irritate them. This is totalitarianism, folks, and it's actually getting worse. And by the way, I'm going to just say this. It is not nearly as impossible of a thought as you think it might be. This is something that is going to be enacted in law. This is in Canada, folks. Listen, this is the same Canada that disabled truckers who were hardworking, trying to actually protest the insanity of the current government. This is the same Canada that arrested pastors. This is the same Canada that pretty much did everything they can to institute the most totalitarian way of thinking. This is the same Canada that's taking away Jordan Peterson's license to practice because he tells the truth. Folks, these people are evil, but the reason why this is a big deal and I'm making a video about it is because it's about to come to the United States of America and it is literally touching all parts of the world. Look at what this lady goes on to say. She says, and there is worse. Although that won't protect you from another clause in this bill, and that is where it trips over into the yet unimagined dystopian territory. If the courts believe you are likely to commit a hate crime or disseminate hate propaganda, not defined by the way, you can be placed under house arrest and your ability to communicate with others restricted. That is, a court can force you to wear an ankle bracelet, prevent you from using any of your communication devices, and then instruct you not to leave the house. If the court believes there's a risk you may get drunk or high and start tweeting under the influence, although how is unclear given you can't use your phone or a PC, it can order you to submit regular urine samples to the authorities. And it goes on to say that anybody who refuses to comply can literally go to prison. It's that crazy, folks. Look at what the doctor continues to say. By externalizing the defense of free speech to the right and extreme right, and by endorsing repression, the liberal left is playing a very dangerous game here. For those of us who are not on the right and extreme right, this is rather disheartening. The left is actually shooting itself in the foot and will come back whining, amazed that ordinary people are so ungrateful. Indeed, it seems to have forgotten that the rule of law implies to solve disagreements in the voting booth rather than by silencing those who disagree with us. How can it hope to get support of the public for this insanity? It's absolutely amazing. By the way, there was a online X user who actually talked about this issue a little bit more at length, because what they did was they wrote a letter to every single Canadian MP that they could speak to, and only one responded to them. And in that response, folks, we'll give you the link to it in the video. It is terrible what is actually said. It speaks very clearly into their mindset and what their idea is. And in this document, it actually talks about the idea that it was designed to protect children from actually being molested and so on and so forth, which I'm all for doing that. But in essence, what it is it is the pretext for them to be able to shut people's mouths. And I'm telling you this right now, folks, this is something that is going into a globalist mindset. We know that Trudeau is already a globalist individual who's playing the Klaus Schwab game and all the other games that go with the nonsense that we see happening all over the world. We know that it's moving in that general direction. We've talked time and time again about all of the things that the United Nations is doing and their thoughts and philosophies, their hatred for Israel, their hatred for free speech, their hatred for the idea that somebody might confront them with the truth. As a matter of fact, they've already developed a document that shows members of the UN how to label things as misinformation and the type of information that disseminates what they call hate or, for lack of a better term, a spurious emission. I mean, it's just ridiculous, right? It's absolutely ridiculous. And the reality of what we're facing here is a much bigger picture than the actual article that I'm reading to you. Folks, what we're talking about here is we are talking about the final Antichrist. We know that a time is coming where a totalitarian ruler will come to this earth and he will do exactly all of the things that we are beginning to see done. And what's interesting is people are still going to love him. People are going to stand in line to worship him. We literally read in the book of Revelation 13, it actually says that this guy is going to require that everybody have the mark of the beast on their forehead or on their right hand. That mark is 666. And anybody who does not have that mark will not be able to buy or sell, which means we're going to be dealing with a cashless society. It means that we're going to be dealing with a literal one world government. We know that based on what we read in Daniel, based on what we read about all over Revelation, based on what we read about all throughout the scriptures. We know that those things are coming, and yet we still find ourselves in a position where we seem to just let all this stuff go. And the part about Revelation 13 that is so disturbing is the fact that tons of people are going to wait in line, literally wait in line to do the things that they are asked to do by this Antichrist, to the point where in Revelation 14, we read about an angel who yells out to the whole world, don't do this, don't take the mark, or you're going to die. And they're still absolutely doing it. How does that work? How in the world is it that this Antichrist is able to get away with all of this? Well, one of the ways we know is because the Christians that are on this earth are going to be raptured. And when they're raptured is when the Antichrist will come on board and do the things that he actually does. But what's interesting is you can see the pattern of secular humanist totalitarian governors and what they do and how they actually destroy human life. You can actually see a pattern of it in Revelation chapter 6. and something that's going to happen in the future. You read about 4 horses. You read about the white horse. You read about the red horse. You read about the black horse. And then you read about the pale horse. The white horse clearly speaks of the Antichrist. The the red horse, which comes next, speaks of war, right? The black horse speaks of economic failure. And then, of course, the pale horse speaks of death. And every single one of these regimes that do what Trudeau is doing right now go along this path. They jump into totalitarianism. They seek to destroy free speech. They want to shut people's mouths. They move into this Orwellian way of thinking. They completely mash down people. And then they use a war machine that they develop, their own military industrial complex, to create mechanisms of war that are completely unnecessary, like the things we're seeing right now with United States of America funding Ukraine and the lies that Americans are being exposed to on a regular basis by the Biden regime choosing to twist the arms of people like Facebook and all these other social media providers to actually shut down and silence the voice of conservative people. You see that type of thing beginning to happen. And when the rise of totalitarianism begins to take place, the type of totalitarianism that we're seeing right now is the type that joins up globally together, conjointly with the rest of society to try to shut the mouths of those who are speaking the truth. And I can promise you this right now, the war machine kicks in when it comes in at full blast in the name of being able to fight the war well. What do? We start shutting down people's abilities to be able to make their voice known concerning who their leader is. We just watched the video. I shared this with you guys a while ago of the leader of Ukraine basically saying, I am shutting down your ability to vote. We are not having an election. Why? Because we're fighting this war and we cannot be distracted by opposing political views. He's killed his political opponents, right? Yes, Zelensky has killed his political opponents. He has killed priests, and he goes out of his way to silence the mouths of anybody that would speak against him. Why? Because he is a totalitarian ruler, and he does not care about freedom, and he does not care about the mindset of freedom. He actually hates freedom because freedom is the very thing that will stand in the way of him being able to do what he does. Same thing as Trudeau, same thing as Joe Biden, same thing as so many other people that are seeking to bring in totalitarianism. So the war machine begins to rage. When the war machine begins to rage, then you get the black horse, which the black horse is economic failure. And that is something, of course, we should be expecting to see. We know that economic failure takes place at the hands of an elitist group that continues to rule from their ivory towers, right? While saying the things that they say, creating the expansion of the war machine while continuing to live the luscious, completely insanely rich lifestyles that they continue to live. And the reality of it is they are a minority of people that rule the majority. Matter of fact, the Bible actually says it. Don't touch the oil and the wine, right? That whole picture that it gives us of that black horse involves a ruling class, the Clintons of the world and all the other people that we know of, the Klaus Schwabs of the world, and many of these other people. And then we begin to see the picture of death that becomes a major issue. You begin to see death at large levels. And of course, with the pale horse comes around, the one that we read about in Revelation chapter 6, we're actually going to see the death of 1/4 of the world's population. But folks, you should be able to see these patterns right now in stories like this story in Canada. These are discernible patterns. These are not patterns that are difficult to see. These are not patterns that are difficult to understand or analyze. We are watching this type of thing happening on a day-to-day basis. It is terrible. It is absolutely brutal. Listen, a time is coming very quickly in Canada that if you speak about the things of God, you will go to jail. It's already happening on a bunch of levels. If you speak with a pro-Israeli bent, if you say you support Israel's right to self-determination, you will get arrested in Canada. And it's not far away from happening in the United States or anywhere else in the world. Folks, it is getting dark. The days are getting darker, and we should be expecting this to happen. But you need to keep your heads up because undoubtedly we are in the last days and it's time for us to wake up, folks. A lot of things are happening and we need to be aware of those things to keep our eyes on the Lord and understand what's changing because time is running out. God bless you, folks. And here's the one thing I want to remind you of. We know who wins at the end and we will not comply. God bless you.